Nashville, raising Nashville, raising Nashville, raising Nashville.
Welcome to Raising Nashville. I'm Bucky.
Juicebox.
Brand new old boy.
Brand new old boy.
I'm new every day.
I guess you are. This is Monday, and as of 6 a.m. today, we came off of a night-long curfew. It seems like 2020 is going to be the year that goes down in historical measures, and kids are going to be studying this year for years and years to come.
Well, hopefully it's for good reasons. Hopefully
Right.
it's because of change that happens and not for
Correct.
something else.
Something positive comes out of it.
So we're officially off curfew. We don't know if it's going to happen again tonight, but and what we want to do is we want to bring an episode to kind of get your mind away from what's happening in the world right now. And we, at the end of this episode, we are going to take a moment to address things that are going on not only in Nashville but across the country. And so with that being said, today's episode is entitled The Gray-Eyed Man of Destiny, which sounds great, right? It sounds like this guy, whoever the Gray-Eyed Man of Destiny is, was destined to do something great. We're talking, and again, this podcast is called Raising Nashville.
Yep.
So we bring to light things about Nashville and raising children and other things as well, but we have found something that is unbelievable from a local and native Nashvillian. And we're not
Right.
talking about somebody who moved here in the last 10 years. We're talking about
Not somebody from Murfreesboro.
not somebody. No, we're talking about a native Nashvillian, born and raised here, and went on to do incredible / unspeakable things.
Yeah.
I don't know if I guess incredible in a way, but I mean, spoiler alert, everybody, this guy is a real piece of shit.
Right.
Sure.
He's not going to be celebrated.
Yeah.
No.
And the subject of today's podcast is a guy named William Walker. And when I first heard the name William Walker, I said, "Oh, great, we're gonna cover some like guy who came here to make it in country music and ended up, murdering a bunch of fast food people." But that is not true.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
It kind of does. But William Walker is a very common name. It could be somebody you went to high school with. It could be, like I said, an aspiring country musician. That's a very country music name. It could be somebody who was the first American, so to speak, to become president of another country.
By force.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. The first American to ever become president of another country was born right here in Nashville, Tennessee.
We're
now,
so proud.
The way he went about it was not the most idealistic. Maybe he had his own ideals about what he was about to do. But we want to bring to you the story of William Walker. And this is kind of inspired by a podcast we were listening to called Behind the Bastards.
Right. It's a 2-part episode. It's really good.
It is. And if you have 158 odd minutes to listen to both parts, we suggest that you go do that. But what we're going to do today is kind of provide the cliff notes. Because
That's what we're good at.
If you did, we're great. If you don't have 158 minutes, try our 40-something. And
Yeah. I think Juicebox can kind of talk, because I grew up here my whole life, never heard of this clown.
Me either.
But Juicebox tell us how you found out about this dude.
First off, I want to say that it is pretty interesting that like his history's kind of been buried,
Sure.
Even as I guess it's because he's such a piece of shit, just like a terrible person. Like Nashville doesn't want to remember him, but I mean,
Rightly so.
like Bucky said, first president of another country or whatever.
that's a big deal.
Anyway, I first heard about this dude like 3 years ago when Dana and I were in Costa Rica. And we're on like this little canoe tour on lake there, like by Arnall Volcano, like, amazing vacation trip, amazing spot to go. We're with this tour guide who's, like probably, 20s, maybe early 30s, younger, cool dude. Like we're just canoeing around. And he's like, "Where are you guys from?" We're like, "Nashville." And he's like, "Oh, Nashville, Tennessee." And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Do you know who William Walker is?" And we were
Does he
like,
make bourbon?
and we were like, no. And I think I vaguely even remember saying, thinking something like Bucky said, like, is he talking about a musician or something?
Yeah.
Like, no, this guy, like, hipped us to who this guy was and like how he basically tried to take over several countries in Central America and was like fought off by several of these Central American countries. And just
Right.
I was blown away when he was telling me the story, and then I had to go back and like look him up, and I was like,
Right.
this story is crazy.
It's kind of the equivalent to somebody coming maybe potentially to our country and not knowing about who led the Southern forces in the Civil War.
Bedford Forrest. Nathan
Bedford
yeah.
Forrest. And that guy was terrible as well.
Yeah,
So
another clown.
Juicebox finds out about this. We find this podcast. We listen to it. We do a bunch of research, and we're going to bring to you today the story of William Walker, which is actually an insane story. Before we get into it, we like to do a thing. This stems from a former podcast. It is included in this one. When we have something good, we want to do a segment called
Plot by Juicebox.
And that is where we read the Wikipedia paragraph about William Walker and then kick it back to Juicebox for his interpretation of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this paragraph right now. William Walker was an American physician, lawyer, journalist, and mercenary who organized several private military expeditions into Latin America with the intention of establishing English-speaking colonies under his personal control, an enterprise then known as filibustering.
Right, filibustering. All right, and then we'll do Plot by Juicebox,
the
gist.
Tale.
A racist frat boy recruits his racist drunk frat brothers to take over a Central American country. Ends up failing his way upward and becoming president of Nicaragua. He then loses that power and actually ends up answering for his crimes, possibly the last white man with power to have to do so.
That's
yes.
Spot on.
I love the frat aspect of that. So let's go ahead and get into William Walker's life. He was born May 8th, 1824. When you think about 1824, that means Tennessee has only been a state for 28 years at this point. He was born in Nashville, Tennessee, to parents James Walker, who was a businessman, and Mary Norvell, who was
a businesswoman.
Yeah, but kind of like an artist, kind of like I don't know, she was outspoken. She wasn't just like that stay-at-home
I gotcha. She did
wife or, household mother. William Walker was born into a pretty big military and political family. Mary Norvell's dad, his name is Lipscomb Norvell. I don't think he has anything to do with the college here in Nashville. But Lipscomb Norvell actually had like 13 or 14 kids. 12 of them were boys, so William Walker has 12 uncles. All 12 of his uncles are in military, political, or journalism in some form or fashion. They were in Nashville. They were in a prominent part of Nashville. Mm-hmm. They were a little bit more wealthy than others, so I would say like upper middle class, potentially lower high class. They were slave owners, and at an early age, William Walker disagreed with owning slaves. When he was a kid. It is said that he was kind of a somber kid. This was an odd thing that we picked up from that podcast, Behind the Bastards.
Right.
He never laughed. There is literally documentation from his friends or people that he knew growing up that said never once did he laugh out loud. He also had a very effeminate look about him.
Yeah, I was confused about what that meant.
I was too. So William Walker grows up, in Nashville, parents slave owners. He's going to school. Turns out that he's a smart kid.
Super smart, apparently.
Super smart. And, he wasn't really that athletic. He just kind of kept to himself. So he put his mind in the books. So much so that in 1837, he finished his primary school at only 13 years old. Now, that's the equivalent of us finishing high school at 13. Kind of hard to fathom, right? I've got a 10-and-a-half-year-old kid. I can't imagine him, getting through this in just 2 years.
I don't know. Asher probably could have gone to McGavick and graduated.
He is pretty smart. So get this. This is even crazier. In 1838, at the age of 14, he graduated summa cum laude from the University of Nashville, meaning at 14 years old, this kid entered college. Or 13, he entered college. At 14, he graduated college.
He's like Doogie Howser.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But you've got to also understand that back then, college was a year-round thing. You went to school every single day. So, you know, it's been said that you have to study everything from, you know, physics to, you know, what's the smart math thing? Like trigonometry. It is also said that college did not stand for three things: going to the theater, attending horse races, and dancing.
So it's like Footloose.
So basically, he finished the University of Nashville by age 14, meaning just 1 year of general studies in college. He graduated, and then he went to Edinburgh, I think that's how you pronounce it, and studied medicine for a couple of years. Then he got his degree from the University of Pennsylvania at age 19. So at this point, this kid has graduated college summa cum laude. Mm-hmm. He has also got a medical degree.
Went to Scotland, yeah.
At 19.
Yeah.
I don't think I went to college till I was 19. So when he graduated from the University of Pennsylvania at 19, he decided then that he wanted to move to Paris. And what he was going to do in Paris was extend this medical knowledge, and it's called practice. You know, he wanted to get into the practice of medicine. He gets to Paris, and one of my favorite stories about Paris is when he got there, he had an issue with some things that were going on in Paris at the time, which was infidelity, having multiple partners, basically having sex with anybody you wanted to.
Yeah, men and women all had a side piece, basically.
They had multiple side pieces.
Yeah.
And those side pieces had side pieces. I mean, it was just a fuck fest in Paris at this time, and he had a big issue with it, right? So a smart kid who's very grounded to his morals. It sounds like this guy's going to turn out great, right? He's going to be just the model of what a human should be, right? So very shortly after he moved to Paris, he had an issue with that. He did not like practicing medicine anymore. He decided, okay, I got this degree for medicine. I'm done with it. Then in 1844, so we're talking he's 20 years old, James K. Polk is elected president. James K. Polk came from the state of Tennessee.
Yes, he did.
He was a family friend with the Walkers, and like Mary Norvell knew his wife, and the James Walker and James K. Polk, you know, bounced back and forth on ideas and stuff. So he's elected president, and this is the opportunity for William Walker, who knows James K. Polk, to move back to America. So he did. He's like, I'm done with medicine. I'm done with these people fucking in Paris. I'm gonna go back home and see what's up. You know, I need to get back to America. I could understand. So when he comes back, he does not go to Nashville. He actually goes to New Orleans, and yes, the reason he went to New Orleans was to study law. So this kid graduates college, has a medical degree, and now he's into law. Right? Again, very smart kid. He actually passed the bar in 1847, so 3 years after he moved back to the United States. So now he's got a law degree, a medical degree, and a college undergrad. But while he was in New Orleans, he had another issue, which is another deeply grounded moral thing. He did not like the profanity that was going on in New Orleans.
Man, he chooses...
You choose the wrong city.
No shit.
I mean, do you think, and this is an honest question, do you think they had the dungeon back then?
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, it is underground. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, our favorite bar in New Orleans is called the Dungeon. It opens at midnight.
That is not my favorite bar in New Orleans.
It's old boy's favorite bar in New Orleans. No, it doesn't open at midnight. It opens when it gets dark.
I thought it opened at midnight, like vampire
It
style.
does open like it. I think it does.
I think it's just when it gets dark, I think.
So anyway, William Walker is in New Orleans. He's got a problem with people, the profanity of people, the way people carry themselves. He gets his law degree, passes the bar. Also in New Orleans, he meets potentially the love of his life. This is even crazier. Her name is Ellen Martin. She was a deaf mute, meaning could not hear, could not speak. At this point, I'm starting to see, now I know the whole story. You guys are about to find out the story, but I'm starting to see that a deaf mute is easy to do whatever you want with, right? Like, I don't mean, I mean somebody who
Yeah, where is
potentially
this
has
going?
an opinion but has to write it down.
Well, I guess it'd be hard for her to cuss.
True.
Yeah.
And nobody else is probably wants her as a side piece. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you can voice your opinions or be more overly aggressive towards somebody like that. But he wasn't. He loved her, and he was infatuated with her. And in 2 years later, in 1849, after meeting her, she actually died of yellow fever that was taking over New Orleans at the time. There were a lot of people that had to evacuate New Orleans because the yellow fever was just swooping,
Right.
the entire town. She battled with it for about 6 weeks, and on her deathbed, he was just completely distraught. And it was the first time he really had shown emotion in his life to other people, which probably never happened again after that moment.
Right.
Because it is said that after she died, he became very cold. He was calculated. He was very violent. At this time, he used his law degree. He had the law degree. He actually moved over to journalism and started working at a newspaper in New Orleans. He was bashing other journalists who were not, reporting right things. He was using that as an outlet of aggression. He was just getting all of this out and saying, you guys are doing this wrong. In fact, I'm going to say whatever I want at this point. I'm not going to have a filter. All of this is coming out because I'm just pissed. My girlfriend, who I thought was going to be my wife, is now dead. I have nothing. So he used all of that to rage. And then what came next? The next part of the story is pretty interesting because this is when he starts to turn.
Do you think he ever laughed again? Do you think he ever laughed his whole life?
I don't know if he did.
I mean, I know he probably wasn't laughing after that, but that's...
Yeah, the one emotion that he did show was
Tears.
sad. Yeah, sadness.
Now, I have another question. All that studying, do you think he studied, cultures of other,
No.
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 Okay.
I think the furthest reach he did culturally was being forced to learn Greek and Latin, because back then those were tongues that you had to speak, or at least
cultural studies.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
No. So in the 40s, there was a guy named General Lopez, and William Walker became infatuated with this guy and what he was doing, which was filibustering.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to say this just because it means something different. Filibustering to the society now means you stand up and you talk for hours and hours on end until you think you've gotten your point across or you reach a certain time limit. I don't really know what it is. I know
Or to waste time.
to waste time. I think the United Kingdom still does it a lot, but we don't really do it in this country.
Yeah,
do we?
we do it here too. Yeah.
Okay. And it's where you could talk for literally 24 hours, but you do not stop. As soon as you stop, your filibuster is over.
Right.
Back then, in the mid-1800s, filibuster means something completely different. It is actually groups of people or one person that organizes private militias who invade other countries to conquer and pose their own rules and beliefs. Literally, you have an idea that there's this small country out there, and you're going to go, hey, I'm going to go take this country over. I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it the way I think countries should be ran based on my upbringing.
Drunk frat boys.
Yes, and that's how we're going to live. We're going to take this country over, and it's all because I want to, not because you want to. I'm going to offer you a few things in this country, maybe some land, maybe some multiple side pieces. Maybe you can cuss as much as you want.
Right.
Maybe
right.
you can own slaves.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
I think another part of it too was the end game for a lot of these people, if they could pull this off, was that then their new country would be absorbed by the United States or the United Kingdom or some other world power or whatever.
Sure.
They're going off on their own, conquering this country, and then being like, hey, you want this land?
And for historical purposes, you will always be known as the guy who did that. According to Juicebox's trip to Costa Rica, he is still known for the guy who did or attempted to do that.
He's a big deal there, and in a negative way.
Yeah,
you think it's
he's
like
well known.
Hitler to Germany?
I don't necessarily know Hitler. But,
I don't. I mean,
but he's a household name down there. They know him as an enemy.
yeah, and they celebrate
His defeat.
yeah.
Sure. So back to George Lopez, not George. Sorry, I don't mean to offend you, George Lopez. Back to General Lopez, who William Walker became obsessed with when he was a journalist at a newspaper in New Orleans. General Lopez was a guy in Cuba, and Cuba at the time was owned by Spain, or Spain had control of Cuba. Spain had a control of a couple of other countries as well. They were a big power, and they were at that time in the 40s, 1840s, not 1940s, they were declaring all of their countries free countries, meaning slavery could no longer happen. And they were going basically country by country by country, and General Lopez in Cuba knew that it was going to happen to them. So he said no. He did not want that. And his reasoning behind it is because General Lopez was afraid that there would be a slave uprising. Once you free the slaves, then they're going to come after you for enslaving them for so long, right? So he had...
Yeah, sounds feasible.
Yeah, so he hatched this scheme to get the United States to invade Cuba and take control of the country. The reason is because he had this motivation that he wanted to keep slavery around. For him, it was beneficial. For a lot of his people, it was beneficial. And he thought that, or he tried to tell people that this country is going to be overrun. There's going to be civil wars. There's going to be all kinds of stuff go on unless we stop Spain from doing this. So he tried to trick the United States into fighting with Spain over Cuba, taking over Cuba. Now it's the United States' property, right?
Gotcha.
The United States said no.
Yeah.
I mean, immediately. They were like, no.
Not
We're
interested.
Yeah, we're not getting involved. But another one of the way he tried to trick people into it, and he got William Walker in on this, is to say Cuba is so close to Florida. We're in the 1840s. You got to think our Civil War didn't happen until like 1861. So 21 years. He got William Walker to convince people through media that this is so close to Florida, this could happen in your country. You better come help.
Right.
Like if you don't come help and this happens, they could get on boats
You're
and go
next.
over there. Yeah, and it's just going to infect
Fear.
your country.
Yeah.
So when the United States said no, General Lopez actually started recruiting Americans himself. This is the first story that I can tell of filibustering, and it's kind of where William Walker potentially got this idea.
Inspired, yeah.
So he supported him, again, was convinced that it was too close to the United States and this could, cause slavery to be, to abolish in the United States. And General Lopez went to New York and started recruiting people off the streets. And I think this is where William Walker gets this idea of the drunk frat boy thing, which we'll get to later in the story. But he recruits a bunch of people. He goes back to Cuba with them and attempts to do that. It fails. It doesn't work. General Lopez doesn't have the power to recruit people off the streets when their own country is saying no. Their own country actually came out, the United States, and said, if you do this and you do this with him, we do not support you. You are no longer you are no longer a citizen of our country.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I thought that was against the law or something like that.
Yeah, so they were pissed. He fails deeply. Cuba ends up becoming a free country or free, state, so to speak.
Yeah.
And at this point, William Walker's like, all right, cool. That didn't work, so let's move on to something else. Shit, I've graduated high school at 13, graduated college at 14, got a medical degree at 19. When I was 21, I was a lawyer. Now I'm a journalist at a newspaper. All by the time...
He's 25 now?
All by the time we would have graduated college today. All of that. And that's pretty insane to think. So he decided he was done with New Orleans after, the failed Cuba attempt. In 1850, he actually set sail south out of New Orleans through the Panama Canal, and it took him 5 months to get to San Francisco.
All right.
So he moves to San Francisco, and he immediately gets a job at the Daily Herald newspaper. This, San Francisco, is where the story and the plot thickens a lot.
Right.
Up until this point, this guy's great other than supporting slavery. When he didn't support slavery when he was a kid, then he starts to get the idea.
To appeal to recruits, basically.
So he takes off and he moves to San Francisco.
Yep. All right. So I pick up the story here. In the summer of 1853, he's living in San Francisco. He's decided, I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna conquer parts of Mexico. Okay.
He just decided
Right. So
because of the failed Cuba attempt. He's like, I can do it better than that.
of course, I mean, he's a smart dude, so he thinks if I can graduate high school at 13, I can probably.
Which brings up a great point. In a previous podcast, and we have mentioned this in a few different podcasts, we still cannot understand how a guy like Jack Daniel can start a distillery when he was like 9 or like 12 or something like that.
Right.
And now I'm getting a better understanding.
We're starting to learn.
It's like the whole 30's the new 20 or whatever, meaning we're 10 years behind 20. This was like 24 is the new 9. Like, I mean,
9 is the new 24.
9 is the new, yeah.
You're right. And I mean, people died so early back in the day, so yeah, you got to get a lot done real quick.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, so all right, 1853, Walker travels down to I'm going to mispronounce this, Guaymas, seeking a grant from the government of Mexico to create a colony. He said the colony would serve as a fortified frontier, protecting U.S. soil from Indian raids. And Mexico said, no, thank you. Said, we're good.
So he said, hey, Mexico, give me some money, and I'm going to come down there and colonize and make
start a
everything
colony.
right.
Yeah.
You give me money to do that.
It's almost like he was like, I'll try the peaceful way. I don't really want to. And when they said no, he's like, well, fuck it.
I'm going to do it anyway. I've
I'll
already
do it
got these
anyway.
plans drawn up.
Exactly. So, all right. So Walker returned to San Francisco, determined to get his colony. So back in San Fran, he started recruiting American supporters of slavery, like we talked about. Most of them came from Kentucky and Tennessee.
Which California was a free state in that time.
It was, right. So, and this is where Manifest Destiny, he's really spouting off about Manifest Destiny. For those who don't know what Manifest Destiny is, it was the belief that the U.S. and its citizens were destined by God to expand across the continent and inhabit the regions, and to institute American ideals on indigenous people. So he's just...
This is the way we do
right,
it.
he's spouting all this stuff. He's saying, hey, man, come down, help me take over this territory, start this new country. And I'll give you, I'll say slavery's okay, and you can have slaves down there. So around this time, he created the Republic of Sonora, based kind of off the success of the Republic of Texas. So I'm not going to get into the history of Texas, but so off basically Texas's history, he's going to try and do the same thing with the Republic of Sonora. Mm-hmm. With his supporters, he set out to conquer the Baja California territory and state of Sonora.
I think that's Baja.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You mean when I go to Taco Bell, I've been ordered a Baja Blast this whole time?
They were probably that drive-through person. It's like, what is this guy
Man,
again?
nobody has corrected me.
This guy's back again.
Just get him his fucking beef burrito and his Baja Blast. I'm kidding. I know it's Baja.
Wait. You get a beef burrito from Taco Bell?
Yeah, I request it.
Oh.
Try it. So, all right. So, I want to point this out. When he set out to conquer this territory, he only had 45 men in his company, which is basically like an NFL team.
Yeah, not even, right?
Not
That
even.
is it.
I mean, that's it. That's like the Titans. He
Yeah.
just grabbed the Titans, went down, was like,
An entire country.
I'm gonna
You
take.
can't even beat the Patriots, but you're going to take over an entire country.
No
But
doubt.
I read a lot of numbers like that too, and it was like kind of blowing me away. But then you have to think like there's not that many people. Like it's still sparsely populated. Like the areas of Mexico that he was trying to conquer.
So anyway, he managed to capture La Paz, the capital of Baja California,
Thank you.
which he declared as the new capital of Lower California, with himself as president. He also incorporated and put into place the state laws of Louisiana, which recognized slavery, like he had been spouting off about, which is funny.
Let me get this straight. Did he just name his new country Lower California?
Right, yeah.
Yes.
He wasn't even that creative.
No, that
Well-
wasn't his strong suit.
And that's the thing too. Like he just took like Louisiana's state charter or whatever and just adapted it and made it his own. Like
Exactly.
he's not creative. Like if you're gonna take over and create a new country, rewrite that damn charter and put some interesting shit in there beyond just like, oh yeah, slavery's legal again. Like everybody's got to wear a top hat on Wednesdays or something.
Baja Blast for everybody.
Do you think his best friend, when he was trying to put this Louisiana State Charter in, that had traveled with him potentially, was like, man, I thought you hated New Orleans. Like, why are you doing this?
I clearly don't get it because he came from California, like we said. It was a free state, but he didn't adopt It's lower anyway. Whatever.
Well, because of slavery. He wasn't
Right,
gonna
it was all
adopt
because of slavery.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, and remember, none of this is sanctioned by the U.S. government. All right. So he's doing all this, conquering countries, setting up all this stuff, and none of it's sanctioned by the U.S. So, fearful of a full retaliation by Mexico, he moves his HQ to Cabo San Lucas, which seems like the best. Right? You know, I mean, if you're gonna, if I'm gonna set up a country or whatever. So
girls in bikinis and daiquiris. It's like, this place looks tempting.
Yeah, in 1853.
I like to think that they still had that back then.
I mean, you got this beautiful place, but nobody could have a side piece in Cabo San Lucas. So anyway, the best, nice location, except for the whole colonial infringement part of it. This was short lived, and then he moved his HQ to Ensenada, further up the peninsula. He declared Baja California as part of his Republic of Sonora, although he never gained control of the area. He only had 45 people.
But why did he keep moving? Like,
he was
just
scared.
didn't like it?
Because the army, like the Mexican army or like some kind of militia or something, was basically forcing him to move.
They caught on to him.
He didn't have enough reinforcements, really, and
like,
he was like getting pushed.
They were like, we thought we said no, and now you're back. So
he had some skirmishes with the military, the Mexican military, but nothing like full on. But it was enough to he was afraid, like, damn, if they really want to, they could probably. So he just moved it further up north, get a little closer to home base, you know. So lack of supplies and strong resistance from Mexico soon forced Walker to retreat back into California, where he was captured by the authorities, U.S. authorities. Back in San Francisco, he was put on trial for conducting an illegal war. Good for the state of California to do that. And his crime was going against the Neutrality Act of 1794.
Of course.
Right.
The United States is like, hey, we already said we're not going to start a war with Mexico.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
The Neutrality Act of 1794 makes it illegal for an American citizen to wage war against any country at peace with the U.S. And it's only a misdemeanor.
God.
Wow.
A misdemeanor.
A misdemeanor. So, okay.
I've got like 4 of those.
Right? I was like, that's like me going on vacation saying, you know what, I'm going to fucking conquer this country. And then getting slapped on the wrist.
They've really tightened the misdemeanors these days.
No,
I mean,
no kidding.
like public intoxication, I think, is a misdemeanor.
So, all right. So with the whole Manifest Destiny thing going on in the nation at the time, and all that, I guess. So he goes to trial. The jury deliberates for 8 total minutes and acquit. They give him an acquittal verdict. So
Not guilty. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. He gets nothing.
He gets
No trouble at all.
You went against our will. You broke this free act, and we told you not to do it. Mexico told you not to do it. You come back. They probably couldn't charge him with much because nobody had tried this, I'm assuming. Or maybe people had tried it, but...
I mean, if it must be a thing if you had to put a whole act in there, right, I guess?
Yeah, from what I read, that not only was he not guilty or acquitted, people were like cheering.
Oh, he's a fucking hero. Yeah, people loved it. People ate it up. There was, on that podcast we listened to, there's like Broadway shows about him in New York.
Yeah,
which was crazy to think about because, I mean, you think the North was more progressive than that, but I guess there's racists everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere. So homeboy takes a year off and then sets his sights on Nicaragua.
Yeah, so
he's like, I failed in Mexico. This General Lopez failed in Cuba. Nicaragua, however, that's further south.
Right, yeah.
Not as big. Maybe we can do this.
So I have to correct you real quick, Bucky. You said that William Walker went through the Panama Canal to get to San Francisco from Louisiana. The Panama Canal actually did not exist until the early 1900s. So it was tough to get any like from New York to San Francisco or goods or whatever.
I just assumed it was because they took off on ship.
Well, the only reason I'm going to correct you is because like that kind of plays into his role in Nicaragua and some of like his time in Nicaragua. So basically, like before the Panama Canal, there was a route that went through the San Juan River from the Atlantic side into something called Lake Nicaragua, which is like a huge lake that's close to the western side, and then they have like from there they transported stuff, I think like maybe on stagecoach or something
By
to like
land.
the next port, and then they sail up to the West
Gotcha.
Coast. So that is actually controlled by the Accessory Transit Company, who's that's owned by Cornelius Vanderbilt.
The richest, one of the richest men in ever.
Right. Okay. So anyway, he's William Walker's back in San Francisco. He is like hanging out. He's enjoying being somewhat famous, like, but he's not really doing anything there.
Enjoying being famous for failing.
Yeah, basically failing
Yeah, you're
upward.
right.
So anyway, he gets word from Francisco Castiglione, who is a member of the Democratic Party in Nicaragua, and they have just had a civil war break out, basically. So there's the Legitimist Party, and they're based in Granada. Then there's the Democratic Party, and they're based in Leon. So basically, to get around this whole conducting an illegal war thing that he already got in trouble for, he had to have Castiglione basically sign a document that says we need these people to come down and help colonize or help something. There was like some loophole to get him down there.
Right.
So he rounds up 60 dudes and sets sail for Nicaragua. I think it's funny because like they don't really talk about it too much in the Wikipedia thing and some of the other articles I read, but on that Behind the Bastards podcast, obviously they did a lot more research than we did, but they talk about how basically this is just like a drunken frat party, like this boat ride down to Nicaragua. Like these guys were just like, he's out on the street like, hey, what are you doing? You want to go take over a country? And these dudes are like, yeah. And we're like, hey, we got a keg of beer on the the boat.
The number that you just said befuddles me. It's like the first time I tried with 45. Now let's just try with 15 more people. Maybe that will work.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so when he when he gets to Nicaragua, he gets 110 more people, like reinforcements from
From that
Castiglione.
guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he tries to attack this city called Rivas, and it's a stronghold for the Legitimist Party. It's also very close to this route that's owned by Cornelius Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
okay.
And he is Cornelius Vanderbilt and his company had struck up a deal with like the former government of Nicaragua or whatever to basically just like have this route, and he was the only person that controlled it, and had a monopoly on it, yada yada yada. So there's a lot of, I'm not going to go into a bunch of battle details of his conquests in Nicaragua, but basically like he attacks this town Rivas. He's defeated, or not defeated, but he doesn't take it over, but inflicts mass casualties on their forces. So then regroups for like a month, comes back and attacks again, and takes over the country, or takes over that city, basically defeating them and taking over the country.
This time he was like, I'm not going to fail. If I fail once, just get up and try again. Sounded like it worked.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So a
So
lot of lives lost.
Yeah.
so from that he becomes like the head general of the army or something like that, and basically there is a president, but he's like the puppet president behind this guy. Like he's controlling everything.
He's the wizard.
He's the wizard. So all that was in October 1855. I think he's got his puppet president for like until 1856, and then he basically holds a fraudulent election and declares himself president. So then he is now president of Nicaragua. One of the first things he does is like slavery had been made illegal in Nicaragua in 1821. He gets rid of that, makes slavery legal again, declares English the national language of Nicaragua, which hardly anybody there speaks, and he gets in bed basically with some of Vanderbilt's, not nemesis, but like
Competitors.
At this point, can I just say that he is 32 years old when
Right.
this is going on? Like, this is a lot.
How?
I'm 38.
I got a question. I got a question. So you've outlawed slavery for 30 years, and then you just bring it back. Like, what does that mean? Like, what? Like, I guess you have to go capture slaves in and
You just
Well-
make it so. This is
Right.
filibustering or colonizing. You
Yeah.
say, this is what's going to happen.
This whole entire time, he has like got a pipeline to the southern states. Like, hey, I'm doing
Okay,
this. This is
right.
going on. So he's like getting money and some reinforcements through that, and also trying to sell these people on, hey, I'm going to take over this country. You
It's
can come
here,
down here and take
and
over some land, and you can bring your slaves with
bring
you
your slave-
because
okay.
it's legal.
And
'Cause I'm
everybody
thinking-
here, I'm going to need you guys to go back to school and learn English, because at this point, I don't care how old you are, this is what we're speaking.
This is it. Yeah.
yeah,
that's
if you're not
mind-blowing.
speaking English, don't speak to me.
I'm just thinking, like, all right, so it's a free state now. If I were a former slave, I'm thinking, no, man. Like, right?
I would say so.
Yeah,
I would think
mean,
it'd just be instant revolt.
But I think
anyway,
what
I don't know.
Juicebox said, he was convincing people to bring their
Oh,
slaves.
sure, I get that. I
Yeah.
know it's naive of me, but I'm just thinking, like, I don't know how people didn't.
Okay, so anyway, he's the president of Nicaragua. He is officially, like, his administration is officially recognized by Franklin Pierce, the president of the United States at the time, in 1856. So he's like seemingly on his way to some sort of legitimacy with his whole dream of taking over a country with some frat boys.
So I mean, yeah, they recognize it. So in some form or fashion, yeah, I guess it is as corrupt and bullshit as it is. I guess it's.
I'm going to be honest
something.
with you. I read that too, and I did not remember Franklin Pierce as a United States president.
Okay, so anyway, he's made enemies with Vanderbilt now because he shut down this trade route and given it to the other people, like, under the pretense of giving it back to Nicaragua or whatever.
Don't do that.
So this dude is pissed. So he sends. It was in a couple different articles I read. It was like he sent some of his own secret agents, like.
Yeah, I
You know,
guess.
Vanderbilt just has secret agents on his payroll. He sends them down to Costa Rica to basically start helping organize a revolt against Walker to
Yeah.
like defeat him and get him out of the area. Costa Rica was also kind of like, and like Honduras and some of the surrounding countries were also kind of like, well, what the hell is going on over here?
Sure.
This dude is like crazy. He's probably going to try to like spread out even more.
Is
so
he
everybody
coming here next?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yes.
everybody's a little uneasy. So, Vanderbilt gets his people involved. The Costa Rican army, along with Honduran army and El Salvador,
Okay.
they all team up. And they're like, their goal is to get rid of Walker. So they attack, but it's like he has a stronghold in Grenada. And it's like they're very, like, he has well-placed guns. And it's like they take a lot of losses.
He's perching.
Yeah.
He's up top. He's like old boy in video games. He just sits on the tower and takes people
Just
out.
sniping people out.
I don't
Yeah,
even know what that
squatting.
means. I don't understand your your words.
So anyway, there's a very famous story about a guy named Juan Santa Maria. The Costa Rican airport, their main airport, is named Juan Santa Maria Airport. This guy is like in the army, and they're like, or in this militia or whatever you want to call it, and they're like they can't make any ground or can't get up, can't break this stronghold. So this guy like volunteers. He's like, look, I will run up to this stronghold and set it on fire so they're flushed out. He's like, my only thing I ask is that you take care of my mother if I die.
Pretty badass.
So this dude runs up there, gets shot, still sets the thing on fire, and like turns the tide of this battle. So they're like, they have to retreat. William Walker pieces out, runs away. He leaves like some of his generals and some other people there, and with the orders of just burn the city to the ground. So that's what they do. They just literally level the entire city of Granada, burn it down. There's nothing left. I think
If you can't have this, or if I can't have this, neither can you.
Yeah,
I mean,
basically.
it's
This fucker, dude.
But that what'd you say his name? Juan Santa Maria. I
Yeah,
mean, how fucking boss is
He's
that? That's
a
just
national
suicide.
hero.
That's yeah.
So anyway, Walker's defeated. He has to return to America, and once he does, he's like still pretty celebrated in the South. Like people are like, this dude. All these racists are like, this dude's a badass. He went down to another country, took it over, was the president for a year.
Here's what I want to be.
Or
Like,
maybe less. Yeah. So anyway, he's like, this whole time he's just stewing. Like he's like thinks that he is actually still the rightful president of Nicaragua. He can't believe that he was ousted. Like he is like hatching schemes to like go back and take over. So One time he like tries to get an expedition going. One time, as soon as he like sails out of the port, the U.S. Navy arrests him and like sends him back. Or they don't arrest him; they like send him back in the country,
Yeah.
and they're like,
Wonder
"You're
how
not,
many men he had on that ship.
you're not going." I couldn't.
70.
Yeah, this time we're going with 80. 15 more. That's all we need.
I've got 2 football teams.
Yeah. I've got a couple of guys down there that probably remember what happened,
But
and they're ready to go back to fighting.
But you're right. They just kind of slap him on the wrist and they're like, hey, no more shenanigans.
So one of the interesting things that I think it was in the Wikipedia article, it talks about how he's like a lot of people like him and a lot of people are like like I said they look up to him or whatever, they think he's a hero. He comes back to the U.S. and starts shit talking the Navy for like arresting him or whatever, and like that's he loses a lot of support because of that, because people are like don't talk shit about the U.S. Navy or whatever. And then that's like one of the things that's speculated about why they like kept fucking with him a little bit. Like,
Sure. He's on the radar.
He called out the Navy, so they're like, okay, we got an eye on you. Next time you try to peace out, you're done.
Yeah.
He finally gets out of the United States. He's going back, trying to get back to Nicaragua. He is arrested by the British government, this time by the British Navy, because they have their own, slavery and interest down in that area. So they're like, we don't want you stirring up our stuff. So they arrest him again, and instead of shipping him back to the United States, they give him to the government of Honduras to stand trial for taking over the country.
Well, heck yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
nope. This time you can't go back and people are going to like you. We're just going to send you to the lion's den and see how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah.
think it's great.
So he stands trial, like all his, his generals and his right-hand men, which we didn't really go into that, but there's some interesting characters in that bit too. Like one of his generals was a British dude that was just like a career, like mercenary basically, like, or a soldier for hire, like anytime
He just
there
wanted
was,
to kill people.
yeah, basically anytime there was some kind of conflict, he would just like show up and
He's
get involved.
like the guy who killed Al Pacino in Scarface. Like, he's just got these Terminator sunglasses on. He's just ready to go.
I was thinking Jean-Claude Van Damme and something, but okay.
I could show you a picture of him real quick, and you will probably take that back.
Oh, whoa.
He
That
actually
kinda
looks like
me.
Oh wow.
No.
He looks like kind of like Paul Cawthon.
Oh, yeah.
No offense, Paul.
Shout
Cawthon.
out Paul Cawthon. We didn't mean to bring you into
offense.
this story.
We're just like constantly getting sidetracked here. He stands trial. Allegedly, one of the things he's like, you can do whatever you want to me, but don't execute my men. Like they were just following orders, yada yada yada.
Sure.
So, like a couple of his generals are sentenced to what they call 4 years working in the mines, which
That sounds bad. That sounds. I almost would rather take the death than
Right.
Yeah.
do not put me down there.
So then William Walker is then executed by the Honduran army by a firing squad. And there's a report like, they shoot him, like 10 guys shoot him or something like that, and he's slumped over, but he's still barely alive. And then one person just walks up, puts a gun straight to his head, and finishes it off.
Wow, that's a pretty insane ending. He got. I mean, there's a story behind this. There's a moral, so to speak. That, come on, something is bad. You can't fly too close to the sun here. You've already failed a couple times. You're testing your luck. You're on thin ice. Don't do it again. And he was so headstrong that he had to do it again.
Play in your own sandbox.
I mean, all by the what did he die? He was like 36.
36 years old when he died.
God, I mean, that is a life. It is a terrible life. That a lot of lives were lost. A lot of families and people were just upended by this guy who had his own ideals and all he wanted was his own country. I mean, it seems like they could have found him an island or something and said, "Look, here, have this." I don't know.
Right. I mean, essentially.
They kept leaving him off. I mean,
I don't but that was the whole appeal to the filibustering, right? Was taking over somebody else's country to get that glory of
that is
taking over the country.
Why didn't he go north to Canada and do this?
It's cold, dude. Like, why wouldn't you want to go to the Caribbean and like say, "Hey, this is where I want to live"?
I don't know. This guy seems to not like cool things. I mean,
It's true. Maybe he likes good weather.
Maybe
I don't know.
that's
But what I get out of this is it kind of makes me want to go to Honduras and Costa Rica and say, good for you guys.
Yeah. Well, Costa Rica is amazing. I recommend
We have
everybody.
shitty people in the United States,
There's
but good
shitty
for you.
people everywhere.
Like there is shitty people everywhere, but we are a country that kind of breeds it. It
Yeah.
seems like. That's the story of William Walker. Speaking of getting worse,
Hey, is there a statue of him here in Nashville?
I don't think so. I didn't.
I'm not suggesting we put one up. I'm just wondering.
Please don't suggest
No,
we put one
I
up. But
never would.
The thing is, me and you never knew about this guy.
Never.
And we're from here, so there couldn't be a statue, right?
I hope not.
I mean, we like to bring our listenership stories about things that you might not know. You
If
know,
there is a statue, it should be of the execution.
Yeah.
Which one?
I don't think that there's a statue of this guy, and why would there be?
Him slumped over, and it's like, this is what happens to you when you're an asshole. And
You
go try
got
to
10
conquer
guys in the
another country
background
by
pointing
yourself.
guns,
Yeah,
and then you got one guy with a gun straight to his head before he's dead.
yeah, absolutely. I
That'd
bet
be a
there's
badass statue.
who's the hero down in
Juan Santa Maria.
I bet there's a badass statue of him.
He's
throwing
got his own
like
airport.
a Molotov cocktail.
There actually is. That's something very similar to that. It's like him holding like a bayonet in one hand and like a flaming torch in the other
Shit,
hand.
yeah.
And it looks like he's like mid sprint or whatever.
That's what I want to see.
That guy is remembered, and that's a good thing. But there's so much about. I mean, there are people that are infatuated. Oh, he's showing us a statue
That's
now.
cool.
That is badass. We're gonna put that on our socials so you guys can see it. So we've covered some pretty shitty people from Nashville or have lived in Nashville. If you guys listen to our episode in regards to the More You Know About Nashville Murder Edition, there are some pretty bad people. William Walker supersedes all of them.
Yeah, let's cover a good Nashville person next time.
Let's do that. We need more uplifting stories, but these are interesting. This is
Well,
stuff that you don't know that
Very much.
you didn't know you wanted to know, right?
Yeah.
There's so many articles. There are books written by William Walker. There are books written about William Walker.
There's a movie.
There's a 1987 movie that we're probably going to put the trailer on our socials because when Old Boy first sent it to me, I didn't believe it. I thought it was a fake Grindhouse type.
It looks like it.
It is, and it's got that Grindhouse movie voice doing the voiceover.
Yeah.
But then I also realized it was a movie because after that I went down a rabbit hole and watched a 20-minute review on the movie,
Oh yeah.
which apparently is a farce. Like it's to make the consumer or the viewer think that like this guy was great, and all along apparently the joke's on you as the viewer because something happens at the end and he wouldn't say it. You know, he's like,
cool.
I can't do a spoiler thing. But this whole movie is not really about William Walker.
I watched the trailer just one time, and was there a helicopter in it?
There was. I think one thing I was reading about it because I want to watch this movie now, but
Our
that was
next
like
review.
it was made by the same guy that made the movie Repo Man. I don't know if you
Okay.
guys
Yeah.
remember that movie from the 80s. So it's like it's supposed to be a little bit more surreal, I think. You know, it's telling the story, and it's still supposed to be taking place, I guess, in the 1800s. But yes, there is a helicopter, and I think people have machine guns or something. So it's kind of just like breaking some rules as far as like, you know.
I got you.
Who does it star? It's
Ed Harris.
Ed Harris. It is classic looking Ed Harris.
It looks like him from Westworld.
That's true. He ages very well.
Yeah.
All right, so that is the story of William Walker. When we began this episode, we said, you know, we would kind of touch on things that are going on in Nashville right now, as well as other parts of the country. It is not an easy time for anybody. It is almost like the word you said earlier, Juicebox, surreal. It doesn't even begin to describe what's happening right now, right? You know, so we, open the year with a pandemic. We've got a president who is not necessarily supporting everything that's going on. We've got now looting and rioting. We've got, unfair deaths going on. It's just this time we've got a curfew. I don't remember the last time we had a curfew. I mean, potentially
Yeah.
it was when Marcia Trimble was killed in 1975. It's, it's uneasy, and I've seen some things about it, and it's passionate. It's like when COVID-19 hit, it was, stay home, You know, it was stay home, wear your mask, do your part, stay 6 feet apart, wash your hands, prevent the spread, stay home. And now the message is go the fuck home. Like, you don't need to be out doing this. We understand. I don't know. I can get personal about it or my own thoughts, but there are ways to protest and there are ways to be a fucking idiot. And that is it's just causing more pain.
Yeah, I don't. So what are you getting at there? Are you saying people should not be protesting?
No, I don't say you're not protesting. I'm saying if you're out there and you are throwing bricks through windows and you are doing this stuff for your own personal, I don't know. Yeah, It's almost like people are going down there because they've never been a part of something like that before and they want to be a part of it. I see videos on Facebook of friends who are going down there just to watch it. Like, why would you do that?
I don't know. I mean, I tend to believe, and maybe this is a bit conspiratorial, but a lot of the time the people that are start like vandalizing property are like basically people that are sent in by the police or by somebody else to just delegitimize this actual like
movement.
Peaceful protest.
I 100% believe that.
So, yeah. Now, on the flip side, though, I think, and I'm not an advocate of violence, but I also think if you want to get your message across, sometimes you have to do things you have to do something fucking large, man.
100%. And that's, unfortunately, that's where we're fucking at right now. Like, it's insane. I mean, we're not going to get on this platform. People can do their own research out there, but it is fucking insane how many people are murdered by the police. And it's even more insane watching how violent the police are reacting to these protesters. Like, they're just blasting people with pepper spray that are just like not doing anything. Like, they're pushing people down in the street. I saw one, there was like an old man with a cane that was like out there. Like, he has a right to protest. A dude just comes up and shoves him down. Like, what the fuck? This is an old man with a cane. He's not doing anything except for standing there and protesting.
Sure. I mean, it's literally becoming a civil war between, I don't know, authority and, people that are trying to raise their voice and say, this is not right. This is wrong, what you were doing. And at some point, you're right. And when I say go home, I mean go home, idiots. If you want to protest, you have a right to do that. You have a right to go down there and have your voices heard. And if they're not heard and all these officers are not arrested, then shit is going to happen. We're not going to stop until that happens. It's just insane that I think it's partially fueled by a pandemic and the fact that 39 million people are out of work right now.
Yeah.
And
It's part of it, I'm sure.
It's just, and also fueled by our, whether you are a Republican or a Democrat or you support our president or you don't, you have to agree that what is going on with that man right now is not right. This is not the way to conduct yourself.
He's not helping the situation at all. He's making things worse, which he has a record of doing,
Yeah.
So, and he obviously has his own ideals and opinions, and those, are bigger to him than a voting group of people, a Senate or a House or trying to make decisions versus this stuff. You're sitting up there at 2 a.m. and tweeting this shit like that. You're going to, if it doesn't stop, you're going to come in with your own guns. I'm like,
we're due for a good leader, man.
I don't know. Let's not get too much further into this, but I want to say like we're on the edge of something, it feels like, and I'm personally a bit nervous to see which direction this is going to go.
So be nice to each other.
Do that. We don't want 2020 that's obviously going to be studied by our children to end up like being a failure. Like do something to make it better. I like the be nice. I like saying, be kind to people. We're all going through different things and we can't even begin to understand what our neighbor is going through.
Sure.
So just treat everybody with kindness and maybe we'll get through this.
Right.
Yeah. And police need oversight because they should be held to like probably a higher, version of the law. Honestly, they're enforcing the law. They should be held to it, if not like more strictly than a lot of people.
Sure.
Yeah.
We hope we didn't lose any listenership right there moving forward, but it's got to be said. And, it's just sometimes you can only hold back so much and bottle so much up. So wherever you are, we really appreciate you listening to our podcast. Feel free to
Tell your mom and them.
Yeah.
I got it right this week.
All right.
And do some research. There's plenty. If you have any type of means, there's plenty of things you can donate to help the like protesters that are being arrested, or just there's stuff you can donate to that's going to help move this cause forward.
Sure. So we'll leave you with be kind and have a wonderful week, or try. We hope you guys enjoyed listening. If you don't have children,
Have one.
have one.
Catch up.
Yeah, we want you to know what we go through.
Yeah, the fear.
Hay un cielo de frío y llovizna, neblinando desde el Irazú. San José está durmiendo.